Welcome, everyone, to Sketchy Ideas, the live point counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate and debate concepts surrounding leadership, business, personal achievement, and living through history in a way that may make you think twice before you implement that new idea you just learned all about on the internet. Welcome. I'm Michael Rampolla.
And I am Brad James.
And today it's episode 84 of Sketchy Ideas, which we are calling The Long Pivot, or There Are No Calendars for Fire Preventers. But before we get more into that, let's hear a word from our sponsors. Brad, over to you.
All right. So, hey, we're in March. We're almost at the end of Q1. If you're not doing marketing, something's wrong. So if you're struggling to figure out why not, or what you need to do, or how to get it done, ping my friends over at Cream City Marketing, and they're going to help you out. Erin over there is great. She's great working with a lot of different types of businesses, anything from manufacturing to Main Street. Hit her up at erin@creamcitymarketing.com, and she'll help you out. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you. Brad, I am always inspired by the performing arts. I'm inspired for myself, and I'm always inspired by what I see the performing arts inspire in other people. It's creativity, it's performances. I'm inspired when I see what other people can do when they're inspired. I love that multiplication effect. That's why I'm so excited and proud and honored to be a part of the United Performing Arts Fund and their 2022 giving campaign. The performing arts inspire us to do more and be more, and that's why I want to support them. And that's why I want to encourage you to support the arts as well, whether that's world-class theater, dance, song, and stage. We want to encourage you to support the arts because of what they do for you and for our community. How can you do that? Very easy. Go to upaf.org/donate and you can contribute today. Or if you just want to get involved with the performing arts supporting organization, you can go to that same website, upaf.org/get involved, and find ways that you can get involved and support the arts yourself. If you're for the arts, we're here to help you. And there we go. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us here. This is episode 84, in which Brad and Michael explore all of the sketchy ideas related to the long pivot. When we were thinking about the thing we wanted to talk about today, we were going back to when we all thought that the pivot was just a pivot. It was like, oh, it's a quick little adjustment we need to make. And then we kept making more and more adjustments, and we realized it's not really about all of those adjustments. It's really a longer term view that we need to be taking. So Brad, we need to be thinking about things differently. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, and I think to be very specific about why we're doing this is in the last, I would say for 3 years, right? We've been dealing almost with constant chaos or like chronic panic or chronic global challenges. And I think when you and I were going through this, the biggest challenge that we had was how do we frame this in a way so people aren't freaking out that we're not diving into the geopolitical stuff, but as business owners, as people who need to be involved, people who need to be aware of this. It's been 3 years. Like, this is no longer just the short, hey, this thing happened, it's causing global ripples. Like, now we're at this point where this is going to continue to happen. And the more that it happens, and realistically, there is an argument against the statistics that says, hey, this has been happening forever. But the difference is now that media, the way it is, we are now way more aware of the things that are happening regularly rather than what we used to be. So, and the point that's important is because now your customers are aware, your staff are aware. If you're not aware, you're not paying attention to the impacts of it. In the past, there's been ways to insulate people from it, but all of this is going to have consistent impact on your business, on how you think about it, on where you spend your time ingesting information and how you react to it. Is that about
That's fantastic. So I like that. Let's break that last argument down just real quick, which is some people say, well, it's always been happening. Agreed. the difference now that you're pointing out is our awareness of it has increased, and or our ability to be aware of it has increased, and therefore the secondary and tertiary impact of it is much more likely, if not inevitable. So it used to be if you were near the crisis, conflict, whatever, and it was directly impacting you, then okay. But if you weren't, then you didn't have to worry about it. Now, not having to worry about it means you have to not know what's happening, because it's very likely that you will become aware of it. And because of our increasingly global economy, the ripple effect is that it's much more likely that the ripples are going to get to you wherever you are.
Yeah, and that's the key. The age of the internet now is something happens on the other side of the world, it's going to get to you one way or another. Whether or not you understand how it gets there is really what you need to pay attention to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so today, that's kind of what you wanted to go over, right? Is hey, when we're looking at things like the crisis that's happening over in Eastern Europe and Ukraine, or if you're looking at COVID, or you're looking at some of the other geopolitical stuff that's happening around the world that will continue to happen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we with this whole thing, there's been a lot of attention drawn to more globalization and how that impacts economies of scale, press, censorship, right? Like all of these things. And this goes back to what you can control and what you can't, right?
I was just thinking, it was absolutely reminding me of those circles from last week. Yeah.
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 And it's so weird.
Your awareness circle increases.
Weird for me. Candidly, like this is just very weird.
Okay, say more.
I don't know if I'm in the minority, but I never thought this would constantly be something that now just becomes part of the daily awareness cycle and daily planning cycle, either for planning for today or planning for the future, right?
I get
and
that.
I think those are things that I mean, you've taught me over the years, and that's part of why I almost feel if you're blocking it out, that's a dangerous place to be, right?
Yep. It is.
Because inevitably something's going to impact you, right? Like gas prices right now are going through the freaking roof.
Thank you. And I'm wishing
I was like every business.
Like last week I was like, oh, I don't have time to get gas. Like I was like, I'll get it next week. And then this week happened and I'm going, okay, so I have the kind of car where you can put in like the amount of the price of the fuel. So when it calculates your fuel economy, it's basing it on how much you spent. 75 times I had to push the up button. I literally paid 75 cents more per gallon this week than I did the last time I filled up my car. Like that's a lot. And usually it's like 10 cents up, maybe a couple cents down. Like 75 times I went and I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. Now I understand, and I'm not saying, oh my gosh, it's a huge hardship for me. I know that it's a huge hardship for others though, and I'm just being aware of that. If you are an employer that's trying to find people, and now those people to get to you have to pay that much more just to come to work, and you're saying we're trying to go to in office, and people are saying, yeah, I literally can't afford to come into the office right now. Like that just shifted. And if you're not aware of the potential impact on people around you, it might not be impacting you, but it's impacting others, and therefore it has influence.
Yeah.
As a very small case.
I mean, and it's going to impact you. It will impact you. I mean, the thing is about all of this stuff, when you're talking about economies of scale and global, it's always a lag, right?
Yes.
There's always going to be a month to 3 months to 6 months before it hits you. You saw it with lumber. We saw it with supply chain stuff from China. We're seeing it now.
Right.
Like the interesting part of this is augmenting or accelerating all of that impact. So not only is it impacting you, but the acceleration of the impact.
Oh, absolutely.
Is going. I don't even know where it's going. Like
it's ramping up. I mean, it's accelerating. It's accelerating. Its rate of change is increasing. So thinking about things differently means, first of all, what I'm hearing from you is, first of all, I have to be open to thinking about it. If in the past I didn't have to think about it because it might not impact me, if I'm choosing to ignore it at this point, I'm literally not paying attention to my actual current context. I'm operating out of sync with the world around me if I'm trying
Right.
to ignore it.
Yep. Yep. Or you're looking at it purely from one perspective, right?
Yes.
So the other part of this that's happened in this world is that I don't know about people who watch this, but that first source that I see, I don't trust right away, right? I look at every source with skepticism, just like we do with sketchy ideas. That's one of the reasons why we do this show.
Good point. It's actually, yeah, you're right.
It's a sketchy idea. Look at the idea, okay? Verify it, but verify it with maybe a counteracting source that you know is totally opposite first to get at least the range.
Yep.
Because right now, like there's a range for the last 3 years. There's been a range on everything we've done.
Absolutely.
There's over here and there's over here. And it doesn't matter what those range, you're just getting a range.
Right.
And then as you find more data, more information, you narrow it in, you know,
Right.
and whatever way it leans towards is the way it leans towards. And that's okay, because you have to look at it without biases.
Right. Which is hard to do.
Have to.
Because we're built with bias, right? This one reminded me of the delusion gap, right? Which is my sense of reality, actual reality. There's always, I mean, it's asymptotic. I can get it closer, but I'm never going to reach zero. I'll never fully grasp the reality that I'm operating in. But my goal is to close the delusion gap so I can operate from a closer sense of reality, because then I've got better data for better decisions, right? So if I'm ignoring it,
curious, that's the episode Michael was calling me delusional.
We're all delusional. Some of us more so than others, Brad. Same. So ignore limited scale. Yep. Yeah, there's risk and on all of these things. If I'm choosing to ignore, if I'm keeping some of the information out, if I'm allowing my delusion, if I'm intentionally delusional, which is a different thing, right? Like that's some other version of this, right? I'm willfully ignoring, or I'm somehow allowing my cognitive dissonance to stand, or I'm, discarding new information because it doesn't fit. All of that stuff puts me at risk of making a decision with a potentially more negative impact than it needed to have.
Yeah, but how do you, so if you're doing this, I guess my question is how do you make sure that because it's always this whole thought process, this approach is something that you have to commit to.
Yes.
And you have to be willing to go through and look at sources that maybe at one point, like I equate this to, I used to believe, we all did, used to believe everything your parents said.
Yep. Well, for a time. And then I believe nothing that they said. Right. And then eventually, right. Skill tips.
But that's my point, right? Is that this is, I'm trying to give people an example of what most of us go through in life and how to use that as a relative tool to go through, hey, I've done this before. How do I make sure I'm consistently weighing in on things? And it's that whole story, right? You weigh your experiences, you weigh your beliefs, you pull in your strategy, you pull in the state of how you are and your perspective, the half glass full, half glass empty. You pull in, like, you're compacting all of these things when you hear and you observe that generate what you're going to come out of that observation with as this is my, we'll call it for today, this is my personal observation. And for some people, it becomes their personal truth, right?
Yes.
And being able to do that is really hard.
Oh, absolutely. It's super hard. And because it takes discipline. It takes discipline and dedication to stick with it, to say, this is worth figuring out. I'm going to figure it out.
Okay.
Right. And as opposed to, I'm curious about it. I mean, so it's a different level. So, okay. So I'll give an acronym. So you and I talked about being more open-minded, just open in general. And so here's open as an acronym. Actually, we'll keep it in black so it's easier to read. Okay, so O is for outcome oriented. which means I have a goal in mind. I have something I'm trying to accomplish, and putting
Mm-hmm.
everything in frame of what I'm trying to do or get accomplished, or that future state I'm striving for, is a good way to hone in on what really matters most.
That makes sense.
Right? P is going to be for perspective, which is exactly what you're talking about. And in this case, it's intentionally seeking out multiples. I'm actually call it perspectives. I think it's probably more appropriate.
And I think that that's really important. I think that that's something that a lot of people need to work on in general. And it's something that you have to fight every day in your mind. Because sometimes you see things and you instantly make that judgment. And you have to go, wait, hold up. Is that true? How do I know it to be true? What if the opposite is true? What if the opposite is more true?
What would that
right?
mean? And yeah,
yep.
Yeah. Yep. All right. E is embrace conflict. Embrace conflict. Not just you and me, how when we take it out back, but specifically. Okay, so sidebar, conflict. Conflict is normal, natural,
yes.
and necessary for growth.
Yes. Yes.
Therefore, embracing conflict is a way to resolve things and get to a solution and an answer. Conflict is when it isn't settled yet. So embrace it. So if I don't embrace conflict, that's the ignore or embrace delusion instead. So if you're familiar with the 5 behaviors model, 5 dysfunctions of a team, that thing, avoiding conflict is, remember it's number 2 or number 3, but it's one of the first 3 dysfunctions is avoiding conflict.
I can look it up quick.
Thank you very much. The opposite is embracing healthy conflict. Like each of those behaviors has a negative and a positive side. The positive side of conflict is embracing healthy conflict as a way to resolve things and get us aligned for forward movement. Thank you. He's got the book. I love it.
One of my favorite books.
Where it is in the model.
It's in the model.
Trust. It's in the model. So I know level 1 of the model is trust, base of the pyramid. All right, trust. Got my 5 pyramid sections, 2, 3, 4. Oh, actually, that's going to work.
There we go. All right. There you go. Yep. Do you want me to draw it?
Well, yeah, you can go for it. Either way, so base is trust, right?
Yep.
What's the second one?
Trust. Then it is fear of conflict.
There it is.
Then it's lack of commitment.
Yep.
Then it's avoidance of accountability. I need to read this book again.
Yeah, and then the top one is results. And actually, I was disappointed in how I started to draw my pyramid, but then I realized that the top where I would put results landed where outcome oriented is, which is the same thing. So healthy versions of all of this is embrace trust, go for trust, be vulnerable, embrace conflict for resolving issues, establish a group commitment. By the way, you can't have commitment without conflict, because conflict resolves the 2 sides and brings us together to enable commitment. Without commitment, I can't have accountability. Without accountability, how can we focus on team results? This is a growth model towards better outcomes. Having an open mindset is required because we have to start at the bottom, establishing trust, which means being open to others. So E is embracing conflict. And I'll go to the last one. N is not invented here, which is your point about hearing from both sides. So the belief that only if I did it or I created it or my people, my tribe have endorsed it, is it anything worthwhile? It's missing out on the capabilities and knowledge that might be elsewhere. Yeah.
Right. And because the reason that is important is because the experiences and perspective may lead to different skill sets, different knowledge bases, different understandings of the facts that are laid out. I mean, and what you're laying out is really, like, without going down too much of a rabbit hole, the reason you end up with dysfunction right there is because of these 2 things in a lot of ways. This is where a lot of people are at right now. There is an absence of trust and there is a fear of conflict.
It's so exactly right. So this is this is also called, how do you have a collaborative mindset?
Yeah.
This, and being open, having it open, is how you embrace collaboration. Collaboration means 1 + 1 is 3, right? We get more when we work together, not cooperation, not compromise, collaboration, which literally multiplies outcomes. So if we're saying it's hard out there and I can't do it all by myself and I don't know what to do next, you're right. But get open and start working with others.
I feel like you're looking into my soul right now, trying to instill this.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. If you want a model of collaboration, look at what we're doing right now. Right? Nicole's laughing at us. She's going, you too. It's like, this is literally a 3-person collaborative effort actively right now, right?
Yes. Yes.
We are demonstrating this. I mean, we don't always agree. One of us is usually right. And that is, well, no, I mean, sorry. Let me, hopefully at least one of us is right. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Hopefully at least one of us is right if we're disagreeing.
I'm just listening to how you're saying things, interpretation, right? This is the perspective.
So therefore, if you and I are not thinking about what's the goal today, what's the outcome we're trying to strive for, right? If we're not embracing perspectives, getting into conflicts, and I mean, not even here, I'm pulling these models from everywhere. I'm not coming up with this stuff, right?
Yes.
I'll give credit. This one comes from when I worked at Manpower Group. This was that organization trying to help everybody else understand there's a process and a method for collaboration. This is why we're struggling, because we are not doing these 4 things well. So let's get specific about what we need to do from a behavior standpoint to achieve better outcomes. And the first one is focus on the outcome, not where we're coming from.
No, but that's very clear, right? Like, this is where, if you're applying this thought process though to everyday life, is really where it comes,
especially the ongoing, like, so let's pull it back just to make sure we're landing it where we intended, which is chronic, meaning ongoing and negative, right? If something is chronic, it has a negative impact and it is prolonged. Prolonged negative impact, that's chronic. Bad thing. Prolonged chaos, panic, disruption that we are now more aware of, that is impacting everyone and having a bigger impact because of its worldwide nature.
Yes.
Is going to require new solutions.
Yes.
And a new mindset.
I was just looking up stats.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Because there's a whole bunch of research out there in the world. And I guess this is where there's also a balance, right? Of ignoring and doing the research, right? Is that when your brain is constantly under constant chaos, panic, interruption, all of those things. This is why our brains are wired, because of the lizard brain, right? Why squirrels jump around. That's why, like, people fight, flight, or freeze, right? All of that stuff. Your brain, when it is constantly under that type of, call it noise, its ability to look at things objectively diminishes.
Oh, absolutely, because you only have so much capacity. Your brain only has so much working power. And if that working power is being spent on those things, on keeping pain at bay, then it can't be spent on growth. All right. I remember when Jennifer was pregnant with the boys, and I remember a conversation with the doctor which said, your body only has so much energy. There's a reason there's a reason that we tell you to take pain medication. You might say, I don't need it. And on the one hand, you're right. But on the other hand, that energy that's being spent managing the pain, which can do its job managing the pain, could be spent doing something else, like growing 2 tiny humans. So whatever your feelings on medication, the medication's job is to allow your body to do things that can't be done any other way. So, and I always remember that, and I use it as a metaphor now, obviously, which is, if we could, with a small change over here, take some pain away or take some negative aspect of your business operation away, could you better dedicate your resources to something more beneficial.
Right. Here's an
Yes.
example of that, right? And I know we're going to get into that next week, but at its basic level, think about the time you spend. This reframe. This is why the most successful people and productive people in the world spend about 60 to 70% of their day doing deep dive work and ignoring everything else.
Yeah, that's why I drew my giant pause button, because we're not good at that.
Yeah.
When you have a bias for action, when you're a doer, right, and you get rewarded by doing and saving the day and fighting fires and etc., then you're not gonna, that positive, even the dopamine push of, look, I took care of another one. There's no dopamine push when you pause and step back and think. Hi, Brad.
I'm guilty of one of those, being that type of person.
No, I wasn't talking directly to
you. Yeah, sure. Right. This is why, again, Michael's looking deep into my soul going.
I see you, Brad. I see you.
Hi, yeah.
So, and this is important. It is important to pull back. It is important. Okay, and remember the subtitle of our show, there are no calendars for fire preventers. Firefighters, right? They get their sexy, sexy shirtless firefighter calendar that raises money for, I'm sure, good causes. But like the men of OSHA, like, is not a thing. Maybe it should be. Right? Like
OSHA.
There is no calendar for the guy with the clipboard and the tape measure, right? And the test kit. Like, that guy doesn't get a calendar. He should. I don't want to put firefighters out of business, but the guy who prevents the crisis gets zero hero credit, right?
Correct.
Like Superman
Correct.
Because he saved the day, not because he prevented the day from going badly. So we super, not hero, but like, super safe man. Like, we need that. We need that guy. I mean, I don't know. He needs a better name. He needs better branding. But like, we need the concept.
I am safe man.
I am safe man. Everybody's going, and like, what's your superpower?
What did you do lately?
I prevented bad things from happening. No, you didn't. Prove it. I can't. I didn't happen. I don't believe you. Like the whole thing falls apart when I say there was no crisis and you're welcome.
Yep.
And yet, that's how we grow. We grow when we're not managing the crisis, when we're not fighting the fire.
Yep. Or choosing to put in only so much energy as needed at that time.
Right.
Which, before we dive into that, I think that's what we're talking about next week, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, next week. So this week we're trying to get into the how to think about it, the awareness, the perspective, and establishing kind of a framework where we want you to understand that it's ongoing. It will continue to go on. And if you use old methods of dealing with new situations, new contexts, you too will be out of sync and putting your future success at risk. Because just because it worked before doesn't mean it's going to work again when the context changes. And right now, not only has the context has changed, it is continuing to change, hence the long pivot. It's still going. And I don't see it resolving for years.
Yeah.
Really.
It's not going to. Yeah.
And I don't want, and that's not meant to freak people out. Like, I'm not going for the bunker. What I am saying is, if you're going to learn to operate in this context, and I want you to, because I want you to grow and be healthy, then you need to think differently about how you're operating in the world, because the world changing too.
Yep. Yeah.
So that.
And with that,